Welcome to Talking Tactics. The new commander-in-chief, Oleksandr Syrsky, at a time when the Ukrainian army is under immense pressure along almost the entire front line, ordered the withdrawal of the Ukrainian armed forces from Avdiivka. And in this episode, we want to give you the how, the why, and the what now. Russia launched its offensive on the city in October last year. Strategically, Avdiivka is important because it lies on the outskirts of the city of Donetsk, which is the proclaimed capital of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic. After months of relentless assaults, it is estimated that there isn't a single building left in the city unharmed by Russian bombardment, and from around 30,000 inhabitants pre-invasion, only around 1,000 are supposed to still live in the city. Now, to recent events. The why. According to Alexander Tarnavsky, commander of the Tavria direction, Russia's losses, including injured and wounded during the month-long attempt to capture Avdiivka, amount to around 47,000. Of course, it's impossible to know the exact number. It could be lower, it could be higher, but it's without a doubt that the price Russia paid for the capture of Avdiivka is high. And to inflict high casualties on the enemy was one reason for holding on to it for so long, similar to the fight for Bakhmut one winter ago. The difference is that today the Ukrainian armed forces are suffering from critical ammunition shortage. So critical that there isn't enough to fend off such large-scale attacks that occur daily. Also, manpower is an issue. So, when you make a simple calculation, it's just not feasible to keep a city in which your tired forces are forced to operate at almost 360 degrees with an insufficient amount of ammunition. The how. The order to withdraw was made public on Friday evening, the 16th of February, but it was an option that had been on the table for a while. Any retreat is by nature a somewhat deadly and chaotic undertaking involving many threats, so it's not something that is ever decided lightly. Since October, the Russians have been trying to encircle and capture the city from three main points. From the south, pushing towards west and north from Odyane, from the southwest, where the front line has run directly on the outskirts of the city since 2015, and from the north, where they pushed all along this axis, reaching west of Krasnohorivka towards Stepove, down the railway line to the famous Avdiivka coke plant Koksochim. End of January, after months of assaults that brought minimal gain, the Russians had the first real breakthrough, managing to enter the city first from southwest via Soborna Street, and eventually forcing the Ukrainian armed forces to retreat from the water filtration plant in the far eastern outskirts and position Zenit in the south, which for years was a frontline fortress. On the morning of February 15th, the Russian 1st Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade Slavyansk raised its flag over the fortification. By the way, according to the 110th Brigade and the Ombudsman of Ukraine, Dmytro Lubinets, Russian soldiers executed POWs taken during the retreat from position Zenit. The second breakthrough, which was much more detrimental, happened during the first week of February from the north. After putting pressure on this whole line for months, the Russian 30th Motorized Brigade claimed that they were the first to have broken through between the coke plant and the quarry, fighting their way through the adjacent housed area. They were followed by other brigades, like the 35th Motor Rifle Brigade, who later hoisted the Russian flag over the train station. Anyway, after almost a week of intense house-to-house combat, Russian troops eventually reached the so-called Industrial Avenue, which served as a lifeline for the supply of troops and ammunition to central Avdiivka. With that road gone, things became really grim. The last road out was the road connecting the Kvartal district, which is the name of an area on the outskirts of Avdiivka, made up of mostly Soviet apartment blocks, to Severne. It was also here, as well as the Koksochim coke plant, that the last battles for Avdiivka were raging. The footage we have from Ukrainian soldiers holding out in the catacombs only lets us anticipate the full scale of horrors happening outside. Other footage shows Russians just carpet bombing the entire area with everything they have, from artillery to glide bombs. The retreat from Avdiivka was covered and supported by many units. The 3rd Separate Assault Brigade was rotated in a few days before the order was given to support units fighting there, especially to relieve parts of the 110th Brigade, which had been stationed in and around Avdiivka for 2 years. But they were not alone. The SBU Alpha, which are the Special Operations Forces of the Ukrainian Security Service, parts of the Military Intelligence Corps, but also the 47th Brigade, the 225th Assault Battalion of the 127th, and the Russian Volunteer Corps were all involved in keeping the roads out of the city open for as long as possible and slowing any Russian advances down to a minimum pace. The what now? Well, Ukraine has set up a new line of defense along Severne, Lastochkine, and Stepove. Russia is already trying to push further, with dozens of attacks along this line during the past days. So far they have been unsuccessful. But this is not the only problematic area. Parallel to the capture and occupation of Avdiivka, Russia launched a massive assault on Robotine, which was liberated by Ukraine during the counteroffensive last year. But also between Bakhmut and Chasiv Yar, by Torez, from Mariinka south of Avdiivka to the west, and around Kupiansk, Russia is trying to push forward. Whether they will succeed will in the end boil down to the capacities of the Ukrainian armed forces. And with capacity, we don't mean the skill to fight and defend, we mean ammunition and weapons, the technical capacity needed to fend off such permanent and large-scale attacks to defend the country from being overrun. That's it for Talking Tactics this week. Thanks for watching, hit like and subscribe, and see you next time.